Hi, Dr. C, and to anyone else watching this video, this is my Leadership Journal number 4 reflection, and the takeaways from these modules and the overall mantra theme of what I learned is titled The 16th Second, Being a Servant Leader and Humility. And it's titled this because the 16th Second is a video that I watched by a senior in high school's graduation speech titled The 16th Second. And the message he sent across was the work that he put in to become valedictorian, the grades he strived to achieve, it all paid off in that 15 seconds of fame when he was awarded this prestigious title of valedictorian of his high school. And those 15 seconds of fame seemed worth it. It was wonderful. He had worked so hard his entire high school academic career. And in that 16th second was when he realized, well, what now? Was this at the cost of my personal relationships? Was it at the cost of spending time with my family, getting these good grades? How can we better balance out what is worth it for us, and in that 16th second still feel as if we are a successful and serving, humility-leaning sort of leader? So, and that will later lead into my discussion on being a servant leader and the definition and embodiment of what humility is to me. So, and I do have some notes I will be reading off of. And the first aspect of this module I'd like to touch on is the Project Aristotle Initiative article, which I absolutely loved. It made me feel very excited, and I felt as I kind of related to Julia Rozovsky. And in the beginning, it talked a little bit about how she was working for a consulting company and then was doing research. And I recently accepted a full-time position with a consulting company, which I'm very excited about. But I sort of related to her experiences in that while I'm very excited to be working for this consulting company, doing management and sort of affiliations with government agencies, I'm always going to be anxious to do more research, to learn more, to join new project teams and things of that sort. And I know that her journey sort of got its way to Yale when she was doing her MBA because she felt more curious. She strived to learn more. And I know that this article focused a lot on team-focused learning, which is something that I enjoyed reading about. And what was an interesting dichotomy in this article was how they talked about Team A and Team B. Team A was a team that was very much task-oriented, efficient, on time, not as much concerned with the little get-to-know-you questions or going off on tangents, whereas Team B, in the article, they were described as a bit more, maybe not as efficient, more comfortable with each other, and it posed the question, which group is more successful? And unfortunately, I can't share my screen, so I drew sort of the picture of what they showed, which is this web of interconnectedness, so we'll call it. And I didn't have a title, so I titled it Culture. And that's what I think of when I think of team-focused learning cultures. You know, it's sort of as I aforementioned, a web of interconnectedness. Someone maybe at the top, people next to each other, connected all across the ways. And what was so interesting about this article, the conclusion that they came to, was that the most successful groups, while it was so hard to find those patterns of what makes a successful team-focused learning group, was tracking those norms, tracking the norms of the unwritten rules, so they said. And in situations where everyone got the chance to talk, and it wasn't so much a hierarchical group of someone, leading the way and others being those distinct follower roles, that average social sensitivity, seeing how others felt, checking in, enjoying the time spent with each other in those groups, proceeded to yield a better outcome in group productivity. So I think my favorite part of this article was a blurb where they wrote that Project Aristotle is a reminder that though companies try to optimize everything, automate better data efficiencies, integrate effective technologies, it's very easy to forget that success is built on experiences, like emotional interactions and having those complicated conversations, which brings me back to the title of my Leadership Journal number 4, which is The 16th Second. So what was very exciting for me and sort of a confirming idea and very impactful thought was that we can't optimize successes at the cost of our personal relationships. In that 16th second is the hard work that we did, those late nights we stayed up, those all-nighters and very hard tests that, we thought were so worth it. Is the success optimized worthy? Did it make it so the team culture and our individual overall productivity is at its highest efficiency and effectiveness? So, we can't optimize how our teammates make us feel and how those personal relationships with those that we work with make us feel, because in the end, as Project Aristotle was able to display, a confident and comfortable team culture where those peers or colleagues spend time together outside of work is something that's devoted to, which kind of made me feel a bit curious. I had a recent conversation with my dad discussing, what entering into this new phase of life is going to be like for me personally in regards to recently accepting a full-time offer. He spoke about his experiences in that he did not believe in spending time with coworkers outside of work and getting dinners or getting drinks or doing things outside of a professional setting. And this kind of makes me curious in that the article discussed the importance of that. And I think in today's world, especially now where we're transitioning or hopefully detransitioning from a digitally focused world on Zoom, on FaceTime because of this pandemic, it's so important to make those connections and build those personal relationships, which, as Project Aristotle showed, were key to the successes of a cohesive and enjoyable team project. Furthermore, as we talked about in the lectures, on the lecture slides, the set of norms established were those shared guidelines of behavior, whether it be the chance where everyone gets to talk or, spending about 10 minutes at the beginning of each meeting just breaking down what's about to be talked about or talking about your weekend. The creation of norms allows for an open dialogue, which Dr. C mentioned, which is something that I thought was very, very important and reminded me of in my research team meetings. I am conducting research this semester on allyship and white identities in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement and how myself can be a better ally to my friends of color. In the research meetings that I conduct with my peers, my superiors, the professors that I'm working with, we always take about 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of each meeting to discuss how our week has gone, what we did this past weekend, just casual conversation where we really feel like we can get to know each other in a comfortable and safe space. This leads me into some surprises that I felt in regards to servant leaderships and the dysfunctions of a team. And I'm going to be relating this actually to a TikTok that I saw the other day relating to psychology and how teams are most efficient together. So I drew it out in diagrams. And basically what it's showing is this is specifically in groups of 3. And while foreseeable projects that we have in the future will be, I believe, my group for next week's assignment is a group of 4. This is only 3. And just for the sake of explaining what successful leadership looks like in those relationships and interconnectedness, as shown in this kind of culture diagram from Project Aristotle, is displayed in trios. So I was very interested to learn about and to discuss. So this is the graphic sort of function of the Mean Girls trio. There is a hierarchical sort of set of how the trio works. Obviously, the main character, Regina George, is at the top, and the 2 minions on the bottom. That's graph number 1. Graph number 2 is in relation to Harry Potter, the Harry Potter trio, Ron, Harry, and Hermione, whereas this hardened red line here represents a romantic interest in the group of the trio and a friendship to the 3rd member, which would be Harry. So Ron, Hermione, Harry. And group number 2, actually, as studies have shown, is a pretty successful and cohesive collaborative sort of group. And then moving on to group number 3, which I was kind of interested to discuss. This is in relation to Stranger Things. Forgive me, I forget the names of the characters from the main season, or the most recent season, which it was pertaining to. But this trio is more so related to the fact that the member in the middle is connected to those two on the outside, and the members on the outside have no relation to each other except for the relationship they have with the main character in the middle. While this isn't as cohesive and bonding as group number 2 is, it still works because there's still a shared connection and that sense of interconnectedness. So furthermore, I'd like to discuss a little bit about servant leadership and the Larry Spears article. Also lightly touching upon Patrick, forgive me if I mispronounce his last name, Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. In the group discussion module, I discussed how I thought that the fear of conflict was the most harming of the dysfunctions, just because if there is a fear of conflict, then that eradicates all chances for open dialogue, which Professor Council had discussed before in the lecture video, how there's that creation of the norms that allows for that open dialogue. And if there's a fear of conflict, then that in and of itself erases that sense of trust, that sense of commitment, that sense of accountability. If there's a fear of conflict and there's no 10-minute get-to-know-you conversation in the beginning of a meeting or equal time shared in discussions, then I think that it ultimately can contribute to travesties in group settings. And then in regards to servant leadership, as I mentioned in the title of this video, the 16th second and being a servant leader, that sort of got me thinking about our past modules and another confirming idea on the social change model in regards to the consciousness of self-congruence, and basically just saying how important it is to act consistent when no one is watching. So I thought it was cool that I was able to kind of tie back some of my past learning experiences in this class with a new idea of this module. Continuing on, something that was kind of surprising to me in Larry Spears' article of servant leadership was the characteristics he described as important. And one of those, which I would like to discuss, is foresight. And basically what he said about foresight is, even though it's a unexplored area in leadership studies, it's, very deserving of attention because it enables the servant leader to understand that lessons from the past, the realities of the present, and the likely consequence of a decision for the future are some of the most important ideas to be thinking about in regards to foresight, because one knows what it is when they've experienced it. And that means that because you have experienced what it's been like to be a servant, you know what it can be like, or you'll understand better what it's like to be a leader. And, in leadership, it's so important at the end of those evaluations, and when we're looking at foresight, which is something I hadn't even thought of as an important characteristic of leadership, to require, review, and reward those that we are looking over. The 3 R's per se that were discussed in some of the lecture slides. And it sort of got me thinking about the future. How will I move from here? How can I reward my followers or my peers as a leader myself? When I first thought of reward, I thought of, is that a paycheck? Is that a bonus? But no, it actually can be something that's appreciation or a positive conversation or constructive criticism as reward to do better in the future. So how people sort of facilitate feedback is very, very different, but it's kind of got me discovering a bit more about myself in that fear of conflict, which I mentioned before in the 5 dysfunctions of a team, the foresight, which was a characteristic I was surprised about, and the reward aspect of the 3 R's talked about in the lecture slides, has got me thinking, how can I be a more confident leader to instill the notions that I would like to have a comfortable and safe setting for all open dialogue. I would hope that my followers and I would hope that myself doesn't feel uncomfortable when there's conflict. And I would hope that I understand from now on, and those that I work with from now on know that, rewards aren't just good grades. Rewards can be compliments. They can be tokens of appreciation, just kind words that push each other to be our best. And so in conclusion, it still has me thinking, how will I prepare myself for my future career now that I've confirmed and accepted this position? Am I in the 16th second? You know, do I feel as if this hard work that I've worked so hard to achieve, to have this wonderful opportunity, was at the cost of any relationships? What did I sacrifice for this? How can I improve for next time? What can I do to keep pushing myself to learn more, to think more, to research more? And, you know, though it's a newfound comfort, the security of a job in the future, how will I keep pursuing what gives me excitement? So I wouldn't say that I'm really in my 16th second. I'm still in my 15 seconds of absolute excitement and joy. But I am excited to see what will push me forward next week and in the coming weeks. So thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.